Hey, what's up, my anodized friends? Shh, we're gonna be as quiet as we can. Today's episode, we got it nice and early. We're gonna do a nice breakfast for everybody in the family today. We're gonna do a French toast with blueberries, a casserole style. We're gonna do eggs Benedict with homemade potatoes, and we're also gonna serve a special cocktail at the end, a nice homemade cocktail to serve with it. So stay with us. This is gonna be incredible. So getting right into our French toast. We're going to do a French toast a little bit differently. We're going to do a casserole style. So what we've done is we've taken a loaf of Texas style bread, the thick cut bread. We've cut the crust off and we've diced it up into 1-inch dices. Now I've got a pre-lubed pan here. I greased it up ahead of time with some butter. I just smeared the sides to keep it nice and greasy. Now we're going to dump this in here. And I've got, like I said, it's a whole loaf and it's diced. So then we're going to take this and we're going to take 2 packages of cream cheese diced also, and that's those are cut into 1-inch cubes as well. We're just going to put them right on top and spread out the love. So we got a little bit on top of everything here. And this is going to feed, you'll get a couple of breakfasts out of this. This is going to feed anywhere from 6 to 10 people based on the amount that we're making here. So we've got two packages of cream cheese diced up on top of the Texas toast. Then we'll set this over here for now. And then we're going to take, we've got a dozen eggs, scrambled. I just took a dozen eggs, I took them out of the shell and I scrambled them right up. And we're going to add to that 2 cups of milk. So now we're forming like a custard base almost. And the great thing about it is we're not going to put any sugar in this because we're actually going to make a sauce with the blueberries at the end to go over the top, a really sweet sauce to go over it. So we've got the custard here. It's egg and milk, a dozen eggs, 2 cups of milk. And then I'm going to add about a 1/3 cup of pure maple syrup. And that's a little bit of sweetener. That's all the sweetener we're going to add to it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon to be exact. And let's mix that in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add this cup of blueberries. You can use frozen or fresh. That's about a cup and a half of blueberries. We're going to pour them right over the bread again, spreading them out just like we did with the cream cheese. Pour that right over the bread. And then we're going to pour this custard mix with the vanilla and the maple. And I'm getting those scents right away. I'm already getting them. So we're going to pour that right over the top. Now, one of the things you could do is you could soak the bread in this custard mix overnight or even for a couple of hours and let that bread really suck up the eggs. But we don't have time for that, and also it'll be just as good if you don't have time to do that, so that's fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to bake it, and it's going to bake in the oven. We're going to wrap it with foil first so it doesn't over brown, and we're going to wrap it in the foil. We're going to bake it the first batch for about a half hour, and then what we'll do is we'll pull the foil back and we'll let it cook for probably another 15-20 minutes or so, and we'll see what that looks like. And that's going to be at a 350-degree oven. So we'll wrap this up and get this in there, and then we'll get started on our eggs Benedict. So while we're waiting on the casserole, that's going to take about a half hour before we peel the foil back. We're going to go ahead and get right into the hollandaise sauce. So this is going to take a little bit of time to get going anyway. So what I've got is I've got a medium-sized bowl of stainless steel, and I've got a smaller bowl here, or you can just use the trash, depending on what you want to do for the shells and the whites. What we're going to do is we're going to separate the eggs. All we need is the yolks for the hollandaise sauce. So I've got a small sauce pot here, halfway filled with water. We're going to actually utilize that same water to poach the eggs that we're going to make for the eggs bennies in just a little while. So I've got that brought up to just about a simmer, and that's where we're going to leave it because we're going to be actually cooking the egg yolks on a double boil, what's called a double boil. Taking the bowl like this, just kind of setting it over the heat like that, and we're going to cook the yolks this way. So let's get started on the yolks. We're going to go ahead and separate the eggs, and all I do is I give the shell a crack, and actually we want the whites over here. Now, you can save these whites if you want. Say you want to do like a frittata or you want to have something healthy later on in the week. You could save those egg whites if you want. All I need for this is the yolks. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And all I'm doing is I'm cracking the shell in half and I'm rolling the yolk back and forth from shell to shell, and I'm letting the white fall around the side of it. So I'll turn this water down just a little bit because we brought it right up to a boil now. And we need 8 yolks altogether for this recipe. So I'm going to toss this back and forth. And as you can see, I'm taking as much of the white out as you can. If a little white gets in there, it's okay. If you look at my bowl that I'm saving the yolks, there's a little bit of white in it, but that's not really going to hurt it. You want primarily the yolks. And I could just throw this right in the garbage, but I just wanted to show you, give you the opportunity to save those whites if you wanted to. Like if you're making a pie later on, you can use that white for a meringue, or find another recipe for just the egg whites. Especially when we're eating so unhealthy this morning, you can make a nice egg white frittata later on in the week, so it won't be so bad. And we got 2 more. All right, let me just rinse my hand off, and we'll go right into the double boiler. All right, so I've got my 8 yolks in here. We can go ahead and discard this, put this off to the side, because we don't need this anymore. We're gonna set this over. Now look at the consistency of the water, the heat level of the water. That's really all you need, because we're gonna go nice and slow on this. And you can go ahead and scramble those yolks up. Now hold it over that double boiler and let that heat start to permeate. But the trick to making hollandaise sauce is to keep the egg yolks moving, because if you let them cook in the bowl, it's going to end up being like scrambled eggs. So you want to keep the egg yolks moving, and what's going to happen is these are going to start to fluff up. They're going to double in size, and that's when you know it'll be done. It'll really start to look like a custard almost. You'll be able to see as you're pulling through, like soft peaks starting to form inside. So what we want to do is, it's going to take a few minutes, but we're just going to constantly move that egg yolk, because as the heat climbs up the sides of the bowl, that yolk is where it's really thin. See right around the edge there where it's really thin? That's going to start to cook, and if you don't keep it moving, it's going to turn into scrambled egg, and then you're defeating the purpose. So you really want to keep that yolk moving, and we're just going to let this come up. It's going to take a few minutes, but we're just going to keep the yolks moving, and we'll bring it up, and then we'll start to add the other ingredients. So as this is mixing, a couple of points that I wanted to bring up too is when you're holding the bowl, as you can see here, my hand's on the side here, you can feel that heat climbing the side of the bowl, and sometimes it's a little bit intimidating, so you just want to be careful not to burn yourself. But the other thing too is if you feel like that heat's coming on too strong and it's really starting to cook the egg, don't be afraid to remove it from the heat and get that rest of that egg incorporated and keep that egg yolk moving, so that way you don't end up with that scrambled product that we talked about. I tried to stop myself up, you heard me. But yeah, so you want to keep that egg yolk moving. So if you feel like the heat's coming on too strong on both your hands or on the egg itself, take it away from the heat for a couple of seconds, get that back incorporated, give your hands a break. It's not really too bad, but sometimes if you just let it sit just right, that heat will climb the side of the bowl and you're like, whoa, that's hot. So just be careful. But now we're going to come back on, and you notice that it's really starting to come together. So we want to be careful not to overcook it too. But see, what I mean by soft peaks is when you're mixing it, you can see the lines that stay in that yolk. And this is coming on beautifully. It's coming on just where we want it to be. So we're going to give this just another minute, and we'll be good to go. That looks pretty good. That looks like about twice the size of what we started with. So, let this rest for just a second. I'll talk about the other ingredients that we're going to get added to the hollandaise sauce. I've got a stick of melted butter in the microwave. I have a couple of shots of Tabasco. We're not going to add all this. I just kind of put it off to the side so I can add what I want. I've got some Worcestershire sauce. I've got some lemon juice, and I've got some of the edge. And we'll just pinch the edge in at the end, as always, for flavor. I was watching a cooking show just this morning. I was laying in bed and I was watching it early morning on Food Network. And I'm not supposed to you can edit that out, right? They were adding salt early on in the process. I said, you gotta be kidding me. And this had to be like 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know that it wasn't a celebrity name. It was somebody that apparently just broke out onto the scene. But they were adding salt so early that I'm thinking, wow, when that's done, how are you going to gauge how much salt, there's no control that way when you add it early. So just remember, my advice is add it closer to the end, because you can't take out the salt once it's in there. So that's critical. So all right, so that being said, I'm not trying to trash anybody. I just found that to be very surprising, because that's kind of a rookie mistake. I've got that stick of butter, and when we add it to the hollandaise, And notice, see how the bowl kind of spins like that and stuff? I know that's kind of aggravating. So one of the tricks you can do is you can put a wet towel underneath and that'll keep the bowl from spinning. Or you can just use your belly if you're fat like me and you can kind of hold it in place. I'm going to take the stick of butter and I'm going to slowly drizzle it in to that egg. If you add it too quickly, and just make sure you mix it right in there. If you add it too quickly, what'll happen is it's what's called separating, and then it's going to look like a scrambled, broken mess, and you don't want it to break. They call that breaking, so you don't want it to do that. So you're going to add it nice and slow, probably about maybe a half a teaspoon at a time, constantly stirring and getting it off the sides. So, and the butter will make it get a little bit thicker too, so not to worry about that, because we're going to add some lemon juice that'll thin it down exactly to the right consistency. So there we go, there's our stick of butter. Mix that in. And then, because it's so hard to get the seeds out, I've got a nice little strainer here. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to put the strainer right there. I'm going to take the fork and we're going to get right in there. And we want to add probably about maybe, I'd say about 1.5 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. So 1/2. Nice juicy lemon. Looks like it'll probably be enough. So we're gonna go ahead and take that up and see. I'm glad I caught that because there's a seed in there. If that seed went right into the hollandaise sauce, man, that would be a pain in the neck to get out. So let's, now you see how it's been right out? That's beautiful. And really, with the Worcestershire and the Tabasco, oh, there's the branding again. Just a dash of each. And I'm just gonna go, boop, and that's it. Now, get our trusty tasting spoons, make sure all those flavors are coming through. Yeah, baby. Give it a pinch of the edge, bring it right over the top, maybe 1.5 pinches. Yeah, and now our hollandaise sauce is done. We're gonna set this off to the side, we're gonna reserve it, and we'll get into the actual building of the eggs Benedict. While we're waiting for the French toast casserole to finish up in the oven, what we'll do is we're gonna go ahead and make the sauce for that casserole. And I've got a small saucepan here. We're going to get it nice and warm. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our sugars. And I've got let's see, I've got a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to add that right in there. I've got a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. We're going to add that right in there. And what we're going to do with that is that's going to help to thicken it, so it makes like a thicker sauce, if you will, because the cornstarch and that powdered sugar. Then I've got a 1/2 cup of water. We'll add that in. And it's almost like a simple syrup. What we'll do is we'll mix all that together and bring that up to a little bit of a simmer. And the simple syrup is a very, very common basic thing that's used in lots of things, including mixed drinks, sauces, especially dessert sauces. So, but be careful now, because now that you've got that sugar in there melting, it's almost going to be like a caramel, and then you're going to end up with like a molten lava in there. So if you touch it, it's going to burn. It's going to burn like crazy. But see, if you look real close, you can actually see it's starting to thicken up. It's getting cloudy, and the texture is a little bit different. It's not just water anymore. So as we bring that up to a simmer, what's going to happen is it's going to get really tight. It's going to gelatinize, like if we were to add a cornstarch slurry to it. Then what I've got here while we're bringing that up is I've got a 1.5 cups of blueberries. These are frozen that I've defrosted, and there's a little bit of juice in there. Now, I'm afraid that the juice is going to thin the sauce down a little bit, but I kind of want that juice in there because it's some blueberry flavor. So if it's a little thin for me, that's okay, because there's a lot of flavor in there. As that comes down, it's going to be a lot less, there's a lot of flavor in there, and I just don't want to lose that. So this looks like it's coming up pretty good. And it's starting to get a little bit tighter on the outsides. But you know what we'll do? We can spoon those blueberries out and add that sauce slowly, just so it doesn't end up being too watery. So now let's add those blueberries with a spoon right into that simple syrup that we're making there. And they're going to instantly change color in that sugar. We'll add that in there. Let that reconstitute in that sugar. And I'm just going to drizzle just a little bit in there for now. We can always add more later if we want to. And I'm going to put about a 1/2 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract right in there. And then what we'll do is when we're ready to finish the sauce, I've got 2 tablespoons of softened butter. We're going to swirl that in at the end. That's going to give it a little bit of richness. So this sauce is pretty well done now. With the blueberries, they'll finish, they'll plump and burst a little bit in that hot sugar, and then they're gonna change the color, like I said, of that simple syrup, that sauce. But the consistency looks pretty good. We'll see how it looks after we add the butter too. Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, look at those bubbles. It's starting to caramelize, it's starting to thicken up a little bit. The blueberries are nice and soft and plump. So now we're gonna shut this down, and I think that's pretty good because that means that the sugar's starting to melt and get caramelized and crystallized. It's gonna be really, really delicious. Oh. Now we're gonna fold in, I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon at a time. Just kind of swirl that softened butter right in there. Oh man, let me tell you something. Going to be velvety, incredible. All right, fold that right in there. Let that sugar melt that right up. Yep, that's a beautiful consistency. We'll spoon that right onto the top of the casserole when it comes out. All right, now the sauce is done. The rest of that butter will finish melting right in there. We'll give it a quick stir before we go to top it. So we're going to reserve this aside, and then we'll finish up. We'll get the eggs going and finish up on the Benedicts. Okay, so one of our steps here with the poached eggs is I've got the 2 cups of water simmering, just like kind of we do with the double boiler. I got this back over here again. But one little trick of the trade is to add about a teaspoon of white vinegar to that 2 cups of simmering water. And what that's going to do is it's going to help to keep the eggs whole, so we don't. They don't fall apart and get mushy. This will help to keep them nice and solid, so when they sit on top of that English muffin, it's going to be a nice little round egg there. So we put that teaspoon of vinegar in the water, and then you go ahead and you want to drop the egg right into that. And you want to make sure you're not boiling. This is about the simmer you want right here when you're dropping an egg in there. And what will happen is that vinegar will create a chemical reaction to that egg, and the whites will just bring right up into the next to the yolk, so it doesn't. Because normally if you just put it in water, the whites are just going to run all over the place, and that way by adding the vinegar, it'll help prevent that from happening. So we'll just go ahead and let those poach. And then what I've got also is I've got some smoked ham here. Now you can use Canadian bacon, you can use whatever your favorite kind of ham is. Some people like to use baked Virginia ham. I prefer the smoked. This one here is a nice smoked ham. So what we're going to do here is while these are poaching, I've taken the liberty to go ahead and grill up an English muffin and get ready. You can toast them, you can grill them, we rub a little butter on them and just pan grill them. And then what we'll do is we'll take the smoked ham, dip it right into that water, and you'll see what I'm going to do in a minute as these come up a little bit. We're going to lay them right on just to kind of warm them up. It takes the chill. You just dip right in that hot water, it takes the chill out, set them right on the English muffin, then put the poached egg on top, and then we're going to top it with that hollandaise sauce that we talked about. So let's just make sure, I'm going to use a slotted spoon so the water runs free. Just make sure that the eggs aren't sticking to the bottom, because you want the yolks to be kind of soft still for a nice Eggs Benedict. And these are good. They're just kind of hanging out there, so that's perfect. And see how the egg is brought together. It's not all just running all over the place, and that was a lot of that had to do with the vinegar that's in there. So we'll just let that cook for just another minute. We'll make sure that egg starts to come together, and I'll show you how it is when it's done. All right, these eggs are just about there, and this is what they look like when they're nice and firm. When you give them a shake, they don't move around too much. So before we take them out though, we want to drop our ham in. So I've got 2 slices of ham, and you can go heavy, you can put as much ham on it as you want. But we're just gonna dip them right in there. Don't dip your fingers in there, because that's really simmering water, that'll hurt. But just kind of dip it in there, and that just to take the chill out. And we're gonna set them right on those grilled English muffins that we talked about. And then we'll add those nice poached eggs. Now see, that's perfect. It's perfect. You take this other poached egg here, and now it looks like the yolk is cooked all the way through, but when you pop into it, you'll see that it's still a little soft on the inside. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's phenomenal. Okay, now we're gonna top it with that hollandaise sauce that we made earlier. Not exactly the healthiest breakfast, but it is certainly delicious. It's one of my favorites. I've got a little bit of chopped parsley here to put on top. And I'm just gonna set this aside for just a second while we grab our French toast casserole and get that ready to go. So the French toast casserole came out, and this is what it looks like when it's all said and done here. So now we're gonna cut this, but before I do that, I'm gonna add onto this, I'm gonna add just a little bit of home fries onto this plate here. And that's gonna be one of our finishing touches on the breakfast. And all I do is I just made some standard home fries. I put some seasonings in there with some onions. Maybe we'll do a quick riff on it one time so that way you can see. But just a regular potato with butter and salt and a little bit of the edge, some onions sauteed up in a pan. Now we'll cut into the French toast casserole here. Oh man, Bob, look at this. Let's cut a square, almost if we were cutting a piece of cake. Let's get right in there. I think this is gonna have to be spooned out, to be honest with you. So let's take this spoon right here. Let's just get right in there and spoon that right out. Oh yeah, it looks like a frittata, but it's, oh. And then what I've got is I've got the blueberry sauce. We'll just put just a little blueberry sauce right on top of that. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. Would you look at it? All right, so that is our Sunday brunch. So we usually do a wine, but where we're doing a breakfast, we figured what better way to do a cocktail, like a mimosa or something along those lines. So Bob and I did some searching. We came up with a pretty cool mixed drink, and I'm going to tell you the name after I'm done going through the ingredients list with you, because it's really funny, and I'm afraid I'm going to laugh before I say it. So, all right, so we've got. Well, let's get started. In the mixing glass, I'm going to put a 1/4 teaspoon of powdered sugar. Then I'm going to add 1 ounce of scotch, and that's really it's a really good quality scotch here. It's the Glenfiddich, and I've already tried this, but it's really a good quality. So 1 ounce of scotch. We've got a 1/2 ounce of vermouth, martini vermouth, and we've got a 1/2 ounce of triple sec to add a little sweetness to it. Then we decided to do a 1/2 ounce of cranberry juice and 1 tablespoon of fresh squeezed orange juice. And this is actually real orange juice. It's not coming from a thing. And I'm going to add just a little bit more because I'm a big fan of the orange juice. So we'll do about 1.5 tablespoons of fresh orange juice. And then what we do is we're just going to kind of mix this back and forth. And the scotch that we had inspired the name. So we've got a little, almost like a Grand Marnier shot glass with an ice cube in it. And we're just going to pour that over ice. Oh, it smells so good. And look at that nice pulp in there. Let's see if we can get some of that down there. Oh, that's it. So, we were trying to think of a great name for this great breakfast drink. And like I said, it goes nice with a mimosa. You could do Bloody Marys with this, but we decided to do this. And I give you the Anodized Kilt Raiser. I want to thank you very much for joining us in our madness, magic, and mayhem. I told you I couldn't say it without laughing. We'll see you next time.